it's gonna be hard to get on. Alto Tupaco!
From stopping plane hijackers to rescuing fellow soldiers in trouble, these are the times the military conducted some shocking operations. So sit tight and buckle up, because this ride will be crazy. Without any delay, let's start off with number 1, Rescue Jessica. On March 23, 2003, an American convoy was attacked by Iraqi troops during the Battle of Nasiriyah. Jessica Lynch, a 19-year-old soldier, was among those in the convoy. She was critically injured and then captured by Iraqi soldiers who took her to the hospital. An Iraqi lawyer saw Lynch being tortured by Iraqi troops in the hospital. Unable to bear the sight, he decided to inform the U.S. Army. On April 1, 2003, the U.S. Marine Corps, along with Navy SEALs, launched an attack near the hospital to distract the Iraqi troops guarding it, while U.S. Army Special Forces and other units raided the hospital at night. They successfully rescued Lynch and retrieved the bodies of 8 fallen U.S. soldiers. When American soldiers made contact with Lynch, she was traumatized, even terrified by the sound of gunshots. A soldier gave her a U.S. flag from his uniform and told her, "We are here to bring you home."
You got that flag still?
After years of rehab and emotional recovery, Jessica is now a middle school teacher. It would be pretty cool to have a war hero as your teacher, right? Number 2, Operation Black Swan. Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the former leader of the multi-billion-dollar Sinaloa cartel, is known for his dramatic escapes and recaptures. First arrested in 1993, he escaped in 2001, was caught again in 2014, and fled after 15 months in prison. He was on the run for 6 months until a joint US and Mexican-led military operation known as Black Swan led to his recapture. Interestingly, the operation was initially planned to raid a house where they believed an important assassin was hiding. Instead, they hit the jackpot when they found El Chapo there too. This is the intense footage of the Mexican Marines storming the building. When in doubt, they just threw grenades and unleashed their way in, not letting any armed assailants stop them. But of course, the man who escaped high-security prisons twice had a secret getaway tunnel and tried to escape again. However, his attempt was cut short by federal agents who saw him a little distance from the building. El Chapo is now held in isolation under 24/7 observation at ADX Florence, one of the world's most secure jails. Number 3, MARSOC Combat. Now we have some epic footage that's better than any Hollywood action movie you can think of. This is the Marine Corps Special Operations Command Raiders fighting against the Taliban in Afghanistan. These forces are trained to conduct short strikes and small-scale offensive actions to seize, destroy, capture, recover, or inflict damage in a hostile or denied area. Watch them stay so cool and calm during a deadly battle, showing their incredible discipline and mental preparedness. And why not? They're elite forces, trained for years to handle combat situations. Check out this one. Marine casually chucking a grenade with a cigarette in his mouth like he's in a video game.
Keep your head down, Mark. You're still above the berm.
Yeah, he can't hit me at that.
You can see the troops carefully walking and taking cover behind low walls, but one Marine doesn't have time for that. He runs normally with weapons while being targeted. One soldier even mentions, "They're shooting at you, Dolphin," but he couldn't care less and just keeps moving forward. While this footage is cool to watch, let's not glorify violence. Instead, let's hope for a peaceful world where scenes like this exist only in games and movies. Number 4, Narco Sub. This is the moment the US Coast Guard tracked, stopped, and seized a narco submarine. The guards yelled at the vessel to stop, but it kept going. So, the Coast Guard got their ships close, and 2 brave soldiers jumped onto the moving sub, punching the hatch. Now, if you are wondering why the narco sub didn't just take a dip or why the guy inside bothered to open the hatch, let me explain. These aren't true submarines. They are more of the type of boats that look like submarines and are only semi-submersible. Made specifically for smuggling, these boats can go a few feet underwater and have blue-painted tops to blend in. They are also designed to be easy to dispose of and dismantle, so it was just a matter of time before the soldiers broke open the hatch. This narco sub, captured in June 2019, was carrying over 7,000 pounds of cocaine worth over $250 million. Another narco sub was also captured a few months later with around 5,000 pounds of drugs. While this sounds like a big win, don't forget that navies from different countries have only managed to catch a few of them. Hundreds are still being used in drug smuggling operations. Number 5. Indian Navy. On December 2023, Somali pirates seized the MV Ruwen, a cargo ship 380 nautical miles east of the Yemeni island of Socotra. This was the first success for Somali pirates in hijacking a cargo vessel in 7 years, and they enjoyed their time with the ship for more than 3 months until the Indian Navy's Marcos Commandos decided to step in. On March 15, 2024, they intercepted the MV Ruwen near the eastern coast of Somalia. The operation included transport aircraft that dropped combat loads and Marcos Commandos who boarded the MV Ruwen, supported by the Indian naval warship INS Kolkata and drones. The ship was stopped when commandos were making their way aboard because the steering and navigation systems were disabled by INS Kolkata, forcing it to halt. After a 40-hour standoff, the operation ended with 35 Somali pirates surrendering, and all the crew members were rescued unharmed. Number 6. Operation Gothic Serpent. During the Somali Civil War in 1993, the US military began an operation in Mogadishu, Somalia, in an attempt to arrest Mohammed Farah Aidid, the leader of the Somali National Alliance, who was wanted for attacking UN peacekeeping soldiers. Following a string of attacks on US forces in August, the president of the US-authorized Operation Gothic Serpent, deploying Task Force Ranger, a special task force consisting of 41 men, to track down and apprehend Aidid. Things got intense on October 3rd when the task force executed a mission to capture Aidid's lieutenants. The mission turned into the deadly conflict now known as the Battle of Mogadishu. The task force rangers caused a great deal of damage to the SNA, but they also suffered heavy losses, including 4 Black Hawk helicopters taken down and 18 unalive. Peacekeeping troops aiding the task force, including those from Malaysia, Pakistan, and the US, also suffered casualties. Despite these efforts, they failed to capture Aidid. The operation was terminated as a result of this battle, and the task force and all other forces were withdrawn by the US military shortly after. The Battle of Mogadishu is now studied by different armies for its lessons in mission planning and urban warfare. It also served as inspiration for the film and book Black Hawk Down. Number 7. Operation Atlantic Resolve. In 2014, a war in Donbas broke out between Ukraine and Russia after the annexation of Crimea. These occurrences in Europe prompted the US military to establish and increase their capacity in the region to fortify the NATO plans and defensive capabilities funded under the European Deterrence Initiative. This operation, known as Operation Atlantic Resolve, is still ongoing. Although the fight hasn't occurred yet, there are training programs conducted by European armies and NATO forces. These exercises are meant to show Russia that the troops are ready to defend. Watching troops conduct these training drills where you know nobody is getting harmed is super fascinating, right? So the entire aim of Operation Atlantic Resolve is to discourage Russian aggression by maintaining a rotating presence of US troops in Europe, participating in joint exercises with NATO allies. Number 8. Operation Desert Storm. In August 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait and fully occupied the territory within 2 days. In response, a coalition of 42 countries, led by the United States, aimed to free Kuwait. This war had 2 phases. The first phase, mainly aimed at defensive measures, was codenamed Operation Desert Shield. The second phase started on January 1991 known as Operation Desert Storm, which included a massive air assault and ground offensive. By the end of February 1991, Kuwait was freed from Iraq's occupation. The operation began with an air campaign. For 42 nights straight, more than 100,000 flight operations dropped 88,500 tons of bombs, widely destroying military and civilian infrastructure. Let's have a quick look at the real-life example of the phrase, "old is gold." The USS Missouri, a World War II-era battleship, showed it still had something to offer even after the days of battleship dominance in warfare had passed. It fired more than 100 rounds against Iraqi bunkers to support the ground offensive in Operation Desert Storm. This veteran ship was a valuable asset in Operation Desert Storm, not only for its actions, but also for the psychological impact of its presence. Number 9. Airplane Assault. On December 24, 1994, Air France Flight 8969 was hijacked by the armed Islamic group of Algeria while it was still on the ground. The hijackers demanded the immediate release of 2 leaders under house arrest and a flight to Paris. Algerian authorities blocked the runway, angering the hijackers, then unaliving 3 passengers: a Vietnamese diplomat, an Algerian policeman, and a French chef. To prevent further loss of life, the plane was allowed to fly to Europe. However, during the siege, the plane's engines had already consumed a lot of fuel, so they didn't have enough to reach Paris and had to land in Marseille. At the airport, the elite police tactical unit of the National Gendarmerie of France was already on standby. The hijackers demanded 27 tons of fuel when only 9 were needed to reach Paris, raising fears they might use the aircraft as a firebomb. This request was denied. Frustrated, the hijackers forced the pilot to move the plane towards the control tower where the French negotiators were and downed it. At that point, the GIGN was given the green light to storm the plane. In a cavalry charge-style attack using air stairs, GIGN soldiers boarded the plane and immediately gunned down the first terrorist. Flashes from the gunfire can be seen through the windshield, and the co-pilot managed to jump out of a broken window. Within minutes, all 4 gunmen were discharged, and 228 passengers were rescued, with only 16 injured despite the hundreds of bullets unleashed. Now this is how you handle a hijacking. Number 10. Operation Red Dawn. In 2003, when the US began its invasion of Iraq, President Saddam Hussein was nowhere to be found. The US military labeled him as high-value target number 1, and the manhunt for Hussein was on. After months of interrogations, raids, and arrests of Saddam's associates, the US military finally got intel on his possible whereabouts. They launched Operation Red Dawn, named after the iconic movie. They even gave names to the 2 possible hideouts in Ad-Dor, Iraq as Wolverine 1 and Wolverine 2, just like the 2 groups in the movie. Initially, the operation seemed unsuccessful, and the soldiers were about to leave when one of them accidentally kicked a piece of flooring. Upon inspection, they discovered a pit. A soldier was ready to throw a grenade, thinking it might be a tunnel leading to rebel groups. At the last moment, Saddam Hussein appeared and quickly surrendered, saying, "I am Saddam Hussein, President of Iraq. I want to negotiate." This successful mission proves the statement that if the US Army is chasing you, then you have no chance. Number 11. Operation Just Cause. General Manuel Noriega, the dictator of Panama, was actively aiding drug cartels, and US assets in the Panama Canal Zone were being threatened. The situation escalated when Noriega's Panamanian Defense Forces attacked US service members. This prompted President George Bush to invade Panama and arrest Noriega under the codename Operation Just Cause. On December 1989, over 25,000 US troops, equipped with modern weapons and vehicles, were deployed to Panama. They quickly seized Noriega's private jet and gunboat, trapping him in the country. For a few weeks, the US military attacked dozens of Panamanian Defense Forces bases. Noriega was hiding in a church, and instead of raiding it, the US Army went psychological on him with Operation Nifty Package. They blasted super loud music and sounds for 10 days, until Noriega finally surrendered. The sounds included blaring chicken noises and rock and roll tracks. They even played Rick Astley's never gonna give you up. So yeah, people getting rickrolled as a torture tactic is not just a meme. Number 12. Operation Paraquat. Argentina had the guts to take over the Falkland Islands, which were included in the British territories in April 1982. The British struck back with Operation Paraquat to reclaim their land. The British SAS planned to enter the island by inserting on Fortuna Glacier, thinking the Argentine army wouldn't suspect an attack from that side. But when the mountain troops reached the glacier, they faced extreme conditions, including 100 mf winds and freezing temperatures. They thought about waiting out the storm, but would have lost their lives of hypothermia since the winds were too strong to set up a camp. To retrieve the soldiers, 3 Wessex helicopters were dispatched, but one crashed before reaching them. The other 2 loaded the troops, but one crashed into a ridge. Miraculously, everyone survived, and the 3rd helicopter's pilot made a second trip to rescue the crew from the crash site. Despite the rough start, this kind of determination and resilience led to a successful outcome. The British forces managed to regain control, and to this day, the Falkland Islands remain British overseas territory. Number 13. Operation Red Wings. In 2005, a team of 4 Navy SEALs traveled on a mission in the rugged mountains of Kunar Province, Afghanistan, to collect data on a high-value Taliban target named Ahmed Shah. But the SEALs were spotted by local goat herders, and shortly after, Shah and his men ambushed the SEAL team, armed with RPK machine guns, Alaska 47s, RPGs, and an 8.2 Emma mortar. The brave commander of the team climbed up the mountain, making himself more exposed, to contact their forces through a satellite phone, reporting that they were under attack. Shah and his men unalived 3 of the SEALs, but one, Marcus Luttrell, managed to escape. Severely injured, he likely would have passed away if not rescued by local villagers. The Quick Reaction Force shifted the operation's focus from disrupting Taliban activities to rescuing the SEAL team, which became known as Red Wings 2. Tragically, one of the helicopters from this rescue operation was taken down by Shah and his men. Marcus Luttrell was eventually rescued by the Navy SEALs after the Pashtun villagers, risking their lives, contacted the U.S. Army. This whole operation highlights the courage, sacrifice, and challenges faced by special forces in remote areas. It also shows that humanity is still alive. Number 14. Operation Kayla Muller. American humanitarian worker Kayla Muller was taken prisoner by ISIS in 2013 and passed away as their captive in 2015. Thus, when the U.S. military got intel on the whereabouts of al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS and self-proclaimed Caliph of the Islamic State, in 2019, they launched a military operation code-named Operation Kayla Muller in her honor. This black-and-white declassified footage from the Pentagon shows U.S. military troops strategically moving toward the high-walled compound in Syria where al-Baghdadi was hiding. The U.S. Army chased him into a dead-end tunnel with the help of attack dogs, where he detonated an explosive vest he was wearing, ending his life. The declassified footage also includes the moment when military airstrikes bombarded the compound. After some militants there opened fire at the helicopter. It was a successful mission, resulting in the end of one of the most dangerous men at that time. Number 15. Somalian pirates. The MV Moscow University, a Russian tanker, was cruising in the Gulf of Aden when Somali pirates decided to hijack it. This was a deadly mistake. Not only did the Russian Navy manage to free their ship within 20 hours, but they also started a crackdown against these pirates to ensure they wouldn't dare try such a thing again. Look at this shirtless guy handling a Soviet-era RPG and another firing it without any ear protection. It shows just how casual the Russian Navy is while conducting these attacks, almost like a bored person on a Tuesday. Number 16. Operation Rolling Thunder. From March 1965 to October 1968, the U.S. military launched a massive bombing campaign in Vietnam called Operation Rolling Thunder. This was aimed at targeting communists and rebels fighting against the U.S.-supported South Vietnam government. It marked a big step up in U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, as it was the first sustained American assault on North Vietnam. However, the US underestimated the Vietnamese support for communism and their resentment against the South Vietnamese government. The heavy aerial attacks didn't make the Viet Cong give up as hoped. The operation quickly became controversial. As it spread, not only did the US military struggle to achieve its goals, but they also faced a moral backlash due to the civilian casualties. North Vietnamese forces used missiles and radar-controlled artillery to shoot down hundreds of American planes. They built bomb-proof tunnels and shelters to protect themselves, effectively defending their territory. Eventually, the US decided to stop the attacks and start negotiating for a settlement. But that didn't last long. A new president ordered another aerial assault called Operation Linebacker after taking office in 1969. Today, Operation Rolling Thunder remains controversial. Many consider it a failure, while others have different opinions. Regardless, the visuals of bombs dropping from planes are a stark reminder of a dark time in Vietnam's history. Number 17, Operation Nimrod. On April 30, 1980, 6 armed men entered the Iranian embassy in London and took 26 people hostage. They demanded the release of members of the Democratic Revolutionary Movement for the liberation of Arabistan imprisoned in Iran, as well as a safe journey out of the UK. The British government refused to meet their demands, leading to a 6-day siege. On the 6th day, the gunmen, frustrated, announced that they would take the life of a hostage every 30 minutes. They weren't bluffing, they unalived one hostage and threw his body out. This was the final straw, prompting the British Special Air Service to launch Operation Nimrod. The SAS soldiers, divided into red and blue teams, abseiled from the roof and detonated explosives on the first-floor window. Sim Harris, a hostage in the same room, managed to escape to the balcony. This dramatic scene was broadcast live on the BBC. In just 17 minutes, the soldiers took the lives of 5 of the gunmen and freed all the remaining hostages, except one who was downed during the assault. The successful rescue mission boosted the SAS's reputation, turning them into nationwide heroes. Number 18. Gunship Action. The Beltran-Leyva drug cartel, along with their accomplices, were firing at the Marines and had barricaded themselves in the upper part of a house in Nayarit, Mexico. So, the Mexican military decided to call in the big guns, a gunship helicopter. The machine guns started going off, and the whole neighborhood could hear and see the destruction of the cartel members by the fierce machine gun-mounted helicopter. This intense gun battle resulted in the end of Juan Francisco Patron Sanchez, who was leading the cartel's operations in 2 states of Mexico, along with 12 of his accomplices. The Navy then retrieved grenade launchers, rifles, and pistols from the scene, along with their vehicles. The use of the minigun is something you might never see in an urban area. Number 19. Close Call. A Colombian Black Hawk was hovering somewhere over the territory of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, also known as FARC, during a soldier extraction when the opponents started shooting at the helicopter. The sturdy windshield took a crack, saving the pilot. Staying calm, the pilot checked if he had been fired on, while the other pilot maneuvered the helicopter away. To stay calm after almost getting hit by a bullet? Moments like these show what it takes to be in the military profession. Well, that's a wrap on our journey through some amazing operations conducted by the military. Let us know which operation was your favorite. Make sure to like the video and hit the little bell so you get notified when we post new videos just for you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.